Thank you once again, everyone, for taking out the time and making your presence here. We really value your time. And, we are here for this roundtable, which is on the topic reshaping India's automotive industry, driving change with electrification and digital transformation. And I believe all of you are representing the EV domain in some way or the other, and digital transformation for sure. Nobody is devoid of AI, ML, or some other telematics or other technologies today when it comes to design or manufacturing, and even up to after sales level. So, like we just broadly discussed, the global push towards carbon neutrality and the transition towards greener vehicles with the rapid shift in technology is accelerating the transformation of the automotive industry, and that is globally, not just in India. And this transformation is led by, in India, the two-wheeler and the three-wheeler segments per se, which are really seeing a strong growth when it comes to electrification, and also being assisted by the passenger vehicle segment, and which is also witnessing a strong customer adoption curve when we talk about some key products from some major OEMs in the Indian market. So there's an entire transformation is engulfing the entire automotive ecosystem, which in India contributes to about 7% of our GDP and is the bellwether of an emerging economy like India, which right now is the fastest growing economy in the world. So with the technology first and an aspirational drive sweeping the Indian landscape, automakers are gearing up to realize the immense opportunity that lies ahead. India is undergoing a significant transformation in its automotive industry, driven by electrification. The EV market, as per various studies, is projected to reach about $152 billion by 2030. And with two-wheelers right now leading the sales. So Oben and Raptee and Simple Energy, you guys are in that space. You're in the meat of the growth right now. There have been several factors to this growth, government incentives being one of them. The government has been very pushy in terms of offering some various schemes like the FAME schemes, the PLI schemes, to be able to push the industry for local manufacturing, localization of EV components in India, and sort of eyeing a very large vision of making India an EV hub for global markets. And also, the consumer interest is driving the shift, despite the challenges like a limited infrastructure for charging charging. So, which also, in the recent government incentive scheme, there has been a strong push towards charging infrastructure as well. So, going forward, I believe there has to be a key role being played by charging as well, and that is going to see further acceleration of electric vehicle adoption in India. Simultaneously, digital innovations such as connected car solutions, Tata Motors knows it best. I mean, your cars are really loaded with technology today. And smart manufacturing at the manufacturing end are also reshaping the sector. We have Autodesk as a key technology provider here, which is enabling the industry with their advanced tools for you to be able to manage this transformation in a very better way. And sustainability is like the broad goal of everything. I think whatever we are doing, the COP29 is on as we speak here today. So sustainability is the broad agenda for every country, every company globally, and that is the key driver of this huge transformation of the automotive sector. So my first question here is going to be about the market opportunity. Nikhil, I'll want to start off with you first. How do you see? We are right now the fastest growing economy, as I mentioned. India has already become the third largest passenger vehicle market globally. What market opportunity do you see when we talk about electrification in India's context?
So, Hank, I think we can talk about 4 to 5 key factors or enablers which are helping us. And as you rightly said, by 2030, you're going to be like $150 billion economy. First, of course, as we said, is the economic growth, which we have been seeing for the last fairly stable political environment for the last decade and maybe another 5 more years to come, which has helped stabilize the initiatives that were started at that point of time on greener mobility sustainability. Second is the customer demography. The urbanization is increasing, and by I think around 2030, you'll have more than 500 million people being in the urban area, settling down.
It's a huge opportunity.
Also, what we have seen is a spike in the rural market recently. So it's not only the urban customer, but the rural customer also, and our own sales in those tier 2, tier 3 cities speak very well of those opportunities. Of course, the consciousness and the ownership about environment. If you look at especially the younger generation, they are more willing to come forward and contribute on their own by doing smaller things. Maybe it is buying an electric vehicle, maybe it is traveling with public transport. So these kind of changes we are already seeing. And last, but I think most important, and you also mentioned it, is the advancement in the technology that all of us have gone through, because I think I'm an old timer now in the industry for last 30 years, but the kind of technological exposure that we have had since we entered in 2018, 2019 into electrical vehicles, and where we are today, and what kind of technology we are currently putting in and what we are aspiring to put in is simply phenomenal. So these 4-5 factors, I think, talks a lot about where we are headed and what kind of a growth they're going to have in India.
True. I think it's phenomenal how Tata Motors has moved from Gen 1 to Gen 3 in a matter of just 5-6 years. That's absolutely unheard of in the internal combustion engine world. And as to how, just like the evolving market and evolving landscape, you are adapting so very quickly. I mean, you surprised us with the Born EV architecture. We thought probably it'll be a little later on in the future with Jaguar Land Rover platform. So, I mean, yeah, the pace is something that is very visible. Naveen, I'd like to bring you in. You cater to a very different part of mobility, but adoption has been phenomenal. What do you think about the prospects of the last mile mobility, and how do you see it growing, and
Absolutely.
and where does Yulu see its own presence?
Right. So again, as I had mentioned earlier, like we all started with solving people mobility problem, which was more of a shared, right? Very different business, no ownership. Technology had to play a very big role in making our business sustainable. But as you all know, COVID, 2 years of COVID, what that did was literally everyone was first forced to go and depend on some kind of e-commerce, right? Right, a delivery or two. Then slowly, with the prolonged thing, it became slowly a trust started building among people, right? Where they told, okay, even if I order online, as simple as vegetables itself, the quality will be okay. And then with 2 years, it became a habit. Once anyone gets into a habit, it is very difficult for them to get out of that problem, right? That is what gave, and I would say for our business, especially on the last mile delivery, it was like a midi move. And what we are now seeing is not only e-commerce, a quick commerce, right, which is a new word, which like a lot of other countries, right, it was not successful, but because of COVID, that quick commerce has really kicked up. And with the habit, everyone, right, you're started cooking and you're ordering stuff, right? It has become like that, and that has given a big boost to at least one segment of our business. And the way we see it is like it has been growing. It started with a small player. Now every big e-commerce player is entering into. People who were not even thinking about it, they have also entered, right? Most recent being Flipkart, and I heard Amazon is also entering. And it is going to get into each and every segment. The second big thing that is happening is the government push for the OLDC, which is open network platform for e-commerce. That is also kicking. What that is going to do is it is going to boost our Kirana stores business. For them to employ a person full time into doing this last mile delivery is not at all practical.
The unorganized get organized.
Will get organized, right? So they will also get onto this platform and they will also need, right? So that is where we see the type of business that we are into. There will be a lot of demand. Now, what we need is we need people. And as you rightly mentioned, there is urbanization. Folks are moving to make more money. And again, our platform is helping them. What that is going to do is, again, once they start making more money, money will start flowing into rurals. again, going back to your thing, like you're seeing adoption of EV in the rurals is because of the word of mouth, because that segment of gig workers, right, it is all by word of mouth. You cannot do any kind of marketing to actually grow them. And this is where we see the quick commerce not only in urban but also tier 2, tier 3 cities are picking up.
I mean, help me understand the magnitude of rides that you do today.
So we have close to 45,000 vehicles purely into shared mobility segment, mostly catering to last mile delivery. 3 big cities. We have a small presence in other cities. So when you talk purely about how many deliveries we or our vehicles are doing, it's close to 20 plus million per month. Right?
Wow.
It's not a
20 million.
20 million.
So that is really sweating the asset.
20 million. So again, we are not tied to any of the quick commerce companies. We are basically their helpline or the help support, whatever you can, or lifeline, the right word is, where they come to us and say they need vehicles and things like that. We are providing them wheels, they are providing the final.
Fantastic. So between last mile and passenger vehicle, let me bring in construction equipment, a completely different world, but definitely, like Mike mentioned about COP29 and the entire world has to move towards sustainable future. How is JCB evolving its plan and what role does India play when it comes to, like you were managing the Global Tech Center? Clearly, a lot of things are being developed out of India for the global operation.
So it's like, mostly if you look at the construction equipment industry, since last 10 years, the infrastructure focus of the government on infrastructure, specifically not on urbanization as a rural as the number road per kilometer per day, what we have the record now.
Yeah, it's a record. Yeah,
and that is where the construction equipment industry is coming the growth part, right? But at the same times, being as JCB, as I mentioned, we are number one in market, but then we have responsibility to the sustainable market as well, right? But it's not only for Indian market. Currently, we are almost exporting more than 135 countries from India. So we have a mantra called one global quality, one global product across the world.
Right.
So last year we almost exported electrical scissor from our Jaipur plants, more than 10,000 machines to US. Not only I would say non-emission countries, but the emission countries as well.
Fantastic. On the sustainability front, I mean, what's the path? EVs.
So we have the two
hydrogen.
We have the two paths, I would say. The EV, we are still debating for the construction equipment because a lot of challenge in terms of charging infrastructure, plus the vehicles where we used in terms of location, in terms of mining and all.
But is the government pushing you towards a sustainable?
So, like the PAVE initiatives also has been pushed to the construction equipment industry. But more important is our rural or urban infrastructure development, because a lot of municipalities and cities are forcing to drive the emissions norms within the cities as well.
Yeah.
And there's no option. We have to.
Sadly, we have a dubious distinction of 14 most polluted cities in the world. So we desperately need those solutions for the Indian market.
So we are working on the two platforms. One is electrical as well as hydrogen as well.
Right.
Because larger machines can hydrogen, because number of batteries and the size of batteries, what we require more than 20 ton and bigger excavators machines. That may not be the only sustainable for EV point of view, but then parallel path is hydrogen.
Right. So Niraj, right, I mean, from everyday consuming needs to infrastructure needs to something which is really aspirational, and you have a global vision in mind. What's your view on the market, and how do you see your kind of motorcycle, really progressing with the ever-growing youthful population of India?
So I think, like the previous speakers have said, this market is actually poised for, very rapid growth, right? With urbanization, with increasing incomes, right? The kind of growth that we saw in China for the last 20 years, I think that similar kind of growth is expected to happen from India now. And which represents, like massive opportunities from every part of the market, right? What we are doing is catering to one part of that market, which is aspirational mobility segment, which is, revolves around lifestyle, revolves around personal mobility, which revolves around, very particular aspects where people are willing to, spend their dollar and, make decisions which impact their lifestyle, right? And which is why we chose to start in India, right? So this question existed for us even 6-7 years ago, which is that which segment of mobility should we choose, and where do we intersect with, the trajectory of growth of an economy, right? And we realized that, very soon it's going to be this segment, and where the competition is lower, where the options are fewer, and there's an opportunity to build a brand. Of course, multiple aspects there which are incredibly hard and difficult. But with all of these things aligning, I think we found the perfect spot to align.
What is phenomenal for me is that, nowadays market experts speak about there's Bharat, which is rural India, and there's India, which is the urban India. And you do think at that price point that there are buyers, and the youth of today is willing to spend money, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think what we are seeing is, and the demand is across the country, right? It's not just, when we are present in one part, there's a demand from the other side saying that you guys need to be here very quickly. And it's organic demand. It is not, forced. It's not marketing. It is purely word of mouth that's spreading, that there's a product that is from India that is meeting, global standards. And it's quite it's good for us. It's an amazing feeling to be recognized.
Let me bring in Shreyas. low hanging fruit scooters, that's an avenue where we're seeing fantastic traction. I think scooters, about 14% of the market is already electrified, and you're ready with your scooter. Help us understand your conviction and what are the kind of growth potential you see.
So just to add what Niraj was saying, from the price sensitivity thing, the market or the consumers are moving towards value-driven products, right? So the cost is the secondary thing. It's the value proposition that the product offers becomes the most important thing. And that is what I think also has evolved in the scooter segment. The price would be, let's say, 30-40% higher than the IC engine counterparts, but still the demand is increasing, and we have now started sales in like 7-8 cities, and we are expanding majorly in the south and the west. But as we go into the north and the eastern part, there the demand also is there. So we open a store, let's say in a Kochi or in, let's say, Goa. So somewhere near the other cities would come up and say that we would want a store here as well. So the demand is huge. It's just that there were products in the market before which were just, let's say, rebranded and sold in the Indian market, which were not suitable or not competing with the existing IC.
Boarded from China.
Yes.
And so branded and sold.
So that was something that the people were not very confident on the product. Since the products now have been coming with the serious players also coming in and the startups doing really well. So I think the demand is huge and the market is evolving and accepting products which are slightly premium and at the same time value driven.
And what's phenomenal for me is also the local value chain is getting developed. Madhumita and Dinesh, let me come to Dinesh first. You also launched your motorcycle right now. Make in India is a big push, and localization is extremely important given the price sensitivity. What's been your journey like, and how do you see now that you've hit the road with your motorcycle? How's the traction been, and what's the potential you see?
No, interesting that you mentioned localization, right? So I think our thesis on this is one step beyond localization, right? So obviously we saw the initial vehicles which were CKDs or possibly vehicle integrators who were coming in and kind of I'd still give them some credit for creating that momentum.
Mind space at least.
Exactly, right? And then obviously you had a wave of indigenization where the government was pushing indigenization and companies were trying to kind of just replicate the same products, basically make them in India. But I think what we're seeing today, and I think Tata is kind of leading the way there, is the way we'd like to call it is demographic specific innovation, where we're creating products that really make sense for the Indian market, right?
So there's a lot of local value add that is done.
Exactly. And
designed for India with Indian technology.
Right, exactly. And that doesn't just mean, that means that changing things at an architectural level, not just, putting a bigger battery or putting a smaller motor, or not just in terms of increasing range or reducing power, but rather in terms of how these vehicles fundamentally work, right? And obviously earlier we were chatting about brands who are looking at smaller cars or more affordable vehicles, but Tata's proved that that
can sell.
Exactly. And there's a very specific Indian customer requirement if we can really capture that. And for that, I think they're doing a lot of cool stuff. So, I mean, that's something similar to where our thesis of high voltage tech for electric two-wheelers kind of came in from. So, yeah.
Yeah. Madhumita, you've taken I feel, a very challenging ask of catering to that large volume market with the price points that you're looking at. Clearly, with big boys out there, there's conviction that you feel that you can carve a space for yourself.
Yeah. So I think I would divide it into 3 segments, right? First is your consumer, is the god, right? nothing goes beyond that. Second comes your basically the price. We are sitting in a market which is highly price sensitive. Even 1,000 rupees, 5,000 discount makes wonders, right? And then comes your indigenization, localization, having your tech in-house. How this plays in the real impact in adoption, right? First is consumer. Consumer there are three categories of consumer as I see. The Bharat, which is about not compromising on anything, but price has to be in its budget. If you look at, there is a 100cc segment, which is like sub 1 lakh, then one is 110, 120. The moment you do 5,000 up, then it's
sub-segments, yeah.
Yes. So, right. So, we see that Bharat, that is Bharat, right? Then there is a Gen Z which is coming.
Right.
Which is more, this Bharat is not that, I'll be very candid about it. This Bharat is not really bothering about sustainability. Let me be very.
Yeah, sure.
It's about, it's a commodity, right? Two-wheeler, every household is having. I'm dependent on
utility. It has to be their needs.
But it's also a status symbol. You cannot, as a OEM, compromise on design aspect and any of the features. So this Bharat guy is tight on pocket. Status for them, it is a commodity. It's a status symbol in that locality for him. This Gen Z who is there, who is about sustainability, who comes also from that urban population, which is okay, I want to upgrade myself. Then there is a third category which is evolving, is the techies, which want a full loaded vehicle with all tech, IoT systems and all. So here I see that these are three mindset of consumers, right? And then comes the price, of course, is the umbrella, right? You have to build something which is in that segment. As an OEM, you take a call. I've taken a call, I want to be that, in that segment of Bajaj. Right. And later I could, do a full cash deal with Ducati, right? Yeah. If I become that. So that's my vision.
Right.
Now comes indigenization, how that helps, right? As a OEM, we need to understand, and which is being our passion and, kind of, that's how we have taken a step. Kind of having that entire stack in-house.
Right.
We just not make batteries, not just design, we manufacture them also in-house.
Lovely. So there are capabilities in-house.
Yes. We also do our own motors. We just don't design, we manufacture that also. Right. That's how. We have done, yes, we have done that VCU. VCU also we are doing in-house. We are doing our fast charger. So this is the first entire platform which is not just designing, manufacturing in-house. Now what does that help in the consumer side, right? Definitely technology, you're controlling the technology.
Yes.
You can give a better quality. You can give a better price,
Absolutely.
Which really matters.
Right.
Then the next thing comes in automotive or any of the product, service.
Right.
As a OEM, I have that capability in-house. I can definitely give a better and faster service. Resolution to problems. See, there will be field failure. Today also, there are big brands who have those field failures. So you should be ready to address that. You can't say you are just, foolproof and there's no error, right? Okay. So I think these are certain customer, one segment. Then you have the price, you have to play. You have to design in a way to get to that price. Right? That 1 lakh ka gadi is not easy to design, right? So that mindset, which customer you're targeting, it depends OEM to OEM, which customer. And then you pack it all and kind of get this, and that's how the in-house tech helps you to achieve.
Right, I mean, very well encapsulated. So you've done the market coverage well and you've vertically integrated yourself to cater to the needs. If you hit the good spot, then scalability won't be that much of a challenge. Let me bring Andrew in. You heard from some of the leaders of the Indian electric vehicle market. Give us some global perspective. How do you see mobility, even as you speak of other segments, how do you see mobility as an opportunity globally? And where does India figure for you from that context?
So when you look at mobility globally, when you look at the automotive industry globally, it's really being disrupted by three big things, all right? Electrification is one of the things feeding into it, but electrification is also driving this move towards autonomy, and it's also driving this move towards the experience. I think all of you kind of understand that when you sit in a car today and it has bad software design or user interface, you feel it immediately.
Absolutely.
The expectation of how you experience a car is changing dramatically. And while everybody understands that the EV market is, small right now, people get that there's this move away from managing mechanical complexity to managing system integration and value chain integration in completely different ways. And this is fundamentally shaping everybody's mindset. But I think the biggest thing, and this is why it's so exciting to see all these startups here and the focus on local two-wheel mobility, because people understand and they get it. They're afraid of it and they might not be sure how to deal with it. But this is a once in 50-year opportunity for new global and domestic brands to be created. We are in a moment where new global, and you can see it already, right? Yeah. Who would have predicted a Tesla? Who would have predicted a Chinese, a BYD? Yeah, BYD. Who would have predicted this? Okay, and these are real potential global players in the market. And there's several things that are changing for them. And one of them is this whole notion of vertical integration. Yeah. They're all looking very much at vertical integration and how to wrangle in their supply chains. They're changing their processes, right? And they're looking at new value chains. And one of the things that Autodesk realized about 12 years ago is that the future of software and systems is all in the cloud, right? And it's all going to be driven by AI. AI's everybody's hyped about AI right now because ChatGPT came out and now everybody can understand what it means. But, for those of us in the software industry, this has been in our DNA for a while. Absolutely. In terms of what we're trying to do. And if you want to achieve the kind of systems integration and all the things, and you want to move away from the managing mechanical complexity, all the tools that are out there right now in the industry, they were built in the age of mechanical complexity. Absolutely. And they're monolithic tools that were built to drive processes, and everybody's trying to jury rig them to work in different ways. Absolutely. So everybody, if you're not in the cloud, if you're not thinking about how your data flows seamlessly, if you're not deprecating paper in every part of your process, you're already behind. Yeah. Right? Because AI isn't a thing, it's a feature. Right. Right. And it's going to be a major decision tool for every part of the process. And the people that adopt these tools, the cloud, the full digitization, AI, they're going to be the new global and local brands of the future. I agree. And you don't get these opportunities that often. Yeah. So it's really exciting to see. I mean, the two-wheel mobility problem and the three-wheel mobility problem is a big deal locally in India. It's phenomenal. But it will turn into a huge potential global market. Yeah. Yeah. So for us, when we look at India, we look at those opportunities like this. Electric mobility is transformational for India on all of its sustainability goals. So it's obviously an opportunity for us to say, hey, by the way, we built new SIP booths for this. Right. So it's a huge opportunity for us to come in and talk about the systems we're building. But it's also an exciting opportunity because, at Autodesk, we're very passionate about sustainability. And, the idea of helping an entire economy move away from, pollutant spewing vehicles to fast, efficient, probably autonomous. Yes. Even there's even a world of two-wheel autonomy, believe it or not. Okay, it's more complicated. Yeah, but it's going there, and we're very excited about it.
It's phenomenal. I mean, you come in at a time when we had a record month in the month of October. Festive season is usually the time when people buy, but it actually shocked a lot of the market. And market has grown by 30%. Two-wheeler market has gone across million easily. A three-wheeler market is easily over 500,000. We're going to be like 6.5 lakh. The Indian market is going to be breaching 2 million mark this year. And if someone would have asked me, as someone covering the internal combustion engine market for years, that would the market reach this point, then I would be surprised. And it's phenomenal to see, despite headwinds, as to how the market has reached where it has. And now it's gathering momentum. And what is amazing from me as a market reporter is to see that the conviction and the belief, despite the challenges, people are finding ways to kind of get the right business models in. And I'd like to bring Parminder, you in about the solutions that you offer for the Indian market and as to how that ties into what you're hearing. And then I'll bring Mayank in to bring in the technology part of it as to, and which is exactly what you mentioned, some of the tools, some of the solutions that you offer for the industry. So how critical is that going to be to ensure that the disruptions of the future are managed better? Parminder, if I could bring in.
Sure. Thank you. I think, Andrew already mentioned that, how Autodesk envisioned almost 12 years back that, there is going to be a disruption and, cloud is the way to go forward. And I think as I hear, we are uniquely poised to address the challenges of Indian startup companies, especially who are in two-wheelers and three-wheelers. They need to be very small, usually when they're starting up, very nimble, agile in their work or way of working. Usually it's starting with a 2 to 3 people or 10 people team. Yeah. And imagine that they have to do everything to make the automobile work, the whole life cycle. It's not only just the concept. So they need a solution which has all the capabilities throughout the life cycle of the product. Right. And that's where we are trying to come in, help the organizations or the startup companies by providing a solution which, let's say, if I have to just cover briefly about product life cycle, which everybody knows here, but just for the sake of it, from the concept design, giving you options in the concept design, which usually, when you're a small company, any assistance from AI can, really help you. It doesn't replace, but it helps you. Then getting into detail engineering, trying to see how we can automate things for you in those areas, doing all the CA for you, where otherwise usually a small startup company cannot have multiple solutions to do that. And, you will end up spending so much time in sending data from one software to other. And, that's a nightmare, when you're doing that. And similarly, managing all those option and variants, even though if you're launching one particular product, the bill of material as it moves on becomes slowly a matter of concern for organizations to manage. And then also getting into production area, maybe a pilot production, but you need to really assemble the vehicle. You need to know that whatever you have designed, you will be able to assemble in a way and service in a particular way. So that's the area which we cover. And some organizations which are getting into gigafactories or big plants, we help them to design the plant and as well as bring plant, people and process together to simulate that. That if I'm looking at, let's say I'm starting a big factory, for a large organization, I can simulate what kind of production I will have, where are the challenges, what are the bottlenecks, how do I reorganize or ensure that whatever I'm investing is in the right direction. Right. I think the overall objective of Autodesk is that we ensure that wherever we are engaged, we help our customer to be first time right. All the things.
That's the most critical part with so many product failures that we are seeing in the market.
Look, the thing is with any new fast-growing technology and new fast-growing market, the state-of-the-art changes dramatically and quickly every moment. Right. Okay, how you make it, what you're making it of, there's going to be tons of field failures, like you said. And by the way, if there wasn't field failures, then you would have been pushing the envelope. The people have to design their processes and their systems for agility. Yeah. Because this market is going to move fast. Yeah. And what's acceptable is going to change incredibly rapidly.
Absolutely. And agility is something that this the audience that we have here, it's just phenomenal as to how they are moving so quickly. Mike, if I could bring in the role of technology, how that's changing the landscape.
Sure. No, so I would want to press upon this topic of vertical integration. I think Madhumita mentioned that a lot of companies today are looking to offer a full stack solution. So Niraj, if I may ask you, like in your case, if you could take us through some of the key challenges as a young company that you're facing when you look at completely offering an end-to-end solution from a ground up level.
Okay, so sure. For us, and this was some of the, I was jotting down some points and I wanted to share this feedback as well. So for us, our journey has been over a 7-year period, right? And this 7-year period was where the, design, development, engineering, working with suppliers, and then having the first, early prototypes and, first manufactured vehicles on the road. And over a period of 7 years, it was not an easy task. And the reason I'll focus specifically on things related to the development process, to, the software in itself, right? So things like, for example, I'll give you I'll touch upon a few examples of this because I've attempted and in the past tried to get, cloud-based tools like Fusion within the company adopted. So to start with, while, when we talk about the entire life cycle of development, we go from concept to, our detailed engineering CAE and then later on. So what I hoped for was, entire cloud-based tool chain, everything done online, and that was my hope when I started the company. But as, we started to build the team and we were very clear that we don't want to be doing this with, too much of experimentation, at least on the design side, because we need to be fast, we need to be agile as well, right? So what ended up happening is we ended up hiring a lot of senior folks who come with previous industry experience. Now, what we saw was that for them to transition to something new, if they've been used to something, that they've worked on for the last 10 years or 15 years, they've got given the keyboard shortcuts, embedded into their, minds. And for them to transition to something else, they give us, a straight answer and they tell us that, listen, if you want me to do this on this new platform, it's going to take 4 months. I can finish this in 3 weeks out here, right? So then the choice becomes on me to sort of say that, am I going to, wait for, 4 months or go ahead in 3 weeks. And I'm just giving one example of this, but I'll give you some more instances of this thing that has happened, right? When Andrew mentioned that, we should be deprecating paper and moving away from, any of these old school means of, managing complexity and, mechanical detailed designs. While we aspire to do that, we're still working with over, 400 different suppliers, right? Who want drawings, who want stamped drawings with,
holds you back,
right? And so while we can give them a link online and just say, go check this out, they say, no, please give us a physical drawing, which, which has a signature and a seal. And this effort and this process took us over 3 months, and, half the team was just working on this because we're talking about, 600 to 800 different parts on a motorcycle, right? Now imagine for each of those developing drawings. So while, we talk about, moving to the cloud, moving to some of these more advanced systems, it still requires or it necessitates the need for, accelerated, transitioning mechanisms, whether it is the keyboard shortcuts or whether it's the ability to say, I need, drawings with detailed instructions to be able to give to my suppliers who may not be so advanced. So I just touched upon two extreme ends, but along the way, there are so many challenges.
I agree. Maybe if I can just add, I think it's a valid point, Niraj, which you make. And I guess, the moving from or starting a EV organization itself is a big change. It's a big change in the thought process. And I think it's very important that, the solutions which are there, as Andrew was mentioning, are aligned to that industry. But yes, people are holding you back, and, keeping that in mind as Autodesk, we are driving a big, skill enablement initiative in India. We are ensuring that we are working with different governments, ensuring that, there are courses which are aligned to EV, and there are certifications for that. So that, when the students are coming out, they're well enabled and, do. Today, in fact, if you go to any college and pick up students, they will be very much, comfortable with the using of a technology on that side. And another change big is, the suppliers, how do you engage with them? It's a journey, and at the end of the day, everybody wants to make 100% perfect product, but it takes time. And similarly, this is also a journey which will take time, but we are there to help you and, enable you in whatever aspects which we can. But one thing I can assure you that, we have the technology which can enable your vision on those lines.
Right. Now, I was enthused to hear in a recent conversation that we had that you rejected parts. You were not willing to go ahead with, and that calls for a lot for a startup who's actually operating on a shoestring budget. And you've been very efficient with your capital allocation. I've seen that. So it's phenomenal as to how the entire value chain also evolves with you, so that, there's certain sense of cadence of speed and agility to get to the market and at the right cost. Yeah. Right, Mike?
Sure. No, I would, like Ketan just mentioned, the entire value chain sort of evolves. Nikhil, I want to understand from you as Tata Motors, you're right now in a space wherein you have enough experience of, you've sold enough EVs in India. So just want your perspective on how the supply chain has evolved so far. I mean, do you see it maturing enough already, or there is still some scope for it to mature so that, going forward, we could see India as a broad base for like a global EV sourcing hub for the entire world?
So, I wouldn't say we have reached to the maturation that we have to yet, but the drive on the localization has helped everybody, including us and our suppliers, to come out of their comfort zone. And because we still are a lot dependent, especially on the battery technology, on manufacturers who are outside India. We assemble, but we have to start making. We have to start making chips. We have to start making PCBs. And that's where I think there's a huge opportunity. And including us, we have formed a company, Agratas, which is going to get into cell manufacturing. There's also an announcement, I think recently, on the chip manufacturing. So unless that happens on a full scale, I don't think we can say that we have reached, because we have always been, like he said, mechanically doing things till now. Now everything is shifted to integration. Everything is software on wheels. And that needs a completely different shift in terms of how we think we have been making cars. On the other side, the economy of scale makes a lot of difference, because whatever I said, if it has to happen, it has to have a local and a global market. So it's easier said than done. And we definitely have to look at, if we are going to make cells, we are going to make chips, we are going to make PCBs, there has to be a market outside. So that kind of outreach and credibility has to be also established. So definitely not there where we all of us would want to be. But as India, our journey also has started maybe 7-8 years now. I think will be very interesting to see what happens in the next.
Automotive is also in a way a startup. But is the value chain maturing fast enough?
It is definitely.
It is. Dr. Deshmukh, you want to add on that? I mean, you mentioned in an opening remark that you've already exported some 10,000 electric products to the US. So you would have a sense of how do you see the overall value chain sort of evolving, and like how Ketan just mentioned, is it accelerating towards maturity?
So in fact, I can say the thanks to Tata Motor guys, because we are literally following their path. They're evolving and maturing their technologies. The construction equipment is always the little behind on the automotive guys. What the supply chains, the challenge, what the passenger vehicles are developing, we're trying to utilize that supply chain as well. But still, again, it's not fully developed or worldwide. But if you look at the construction equipment machines, we have the two segments, compact machines and the large equipment. We are just entering into the compact machines where up to the 4 ton or 5 tons battery, where you can replace the IC engines and move to the battery engines. But in our industry, the major challenge is the digital transformations. Okay, if I can just wanted to quote one example, during COVID period, we are not sure where our machine getting utilized, and there's no tracking whether some mining started or still shut down. So our telematics platform literally help us to drive the business. As on today, we are almost more than 2 lakhs machines are connected to telematics platforms. We are the biggest scale on the telematics, and we watch those machines on all big screens in our local plant, which machine under breakdowns and all, to address those parts, because passenger vehicles or two-wheeler vehicle, we can still go to the immediate into the garage and repair it. But in construction equipment machinery, we can't move them to the cities or to the dealership.
Yeah.
So we're working on the platform like digital transformations on the remote diagnostics, so that we can go and then find the fault from our office and then repair those machines.
Right. Naveen, I believe, sorry, please.
Just one point I would like to add, taking a clue from what Mr. Parminder just said. For all of this to happen, what we also lack is currently a skilled manpower. And I think, as he rightly said, working right from the start along with the educational institutes, where you start putting this by the time the person comes out of the degree. It's very important, because currently we are also facing a lot of dearth of good and skilled manpower at every level in the organization.
Again, Niraj recently mentioned as to how he's trying to get people from aerospace and defense industry to get the right skill set, and so, I mean, you really have to look at the right talent in the marketplace. And Mr. Deshmukh, I mean, you are running a tech center, so getting the right people, must be the biggest challenge, isn't it?
To look at what Parminder mentions, because if you look at the Indian universities or institute colleges, those are not really tech institutes or colleges. There are a lot of private colleges, but the practical knowledge, not even the software part, but on the fundamental of engineering is also a bigger challenge. But I think company like Autodesk really is just trying to paint it in that market so that the industry can get good talent.
And even you as a company need to kind of partner and train. I mean, I've seen Maruti Suzuki in Toyota. Toyota is phenomenal in that sense. Toyota just grooms the engineer right from ground zero, right to the manager level. So it's phenomenal. I mean, it's a long gestation period, but you have to.
So in fact, we have collaborated with the IITs, IIT. We are working some of the projects, not only just projects point of view, developing the talent and hiring from them as well. So we are reaching to the IITs and NITs to hire the talent, along with develop their platform and the course content as well that can suit to the construction industry as well.
Naveen, I want you to elaborate a bit more on digital transformation, especially in Yulu's case. I believe that is the core of your business.
That is core,
Yeah.
right? But before I get into, I wanted to add to what Niraj was telling. Our side of the world is very different. By the way, fusion has helped us a lot because we are never into true manufacturing side of the world, because we work very closely with companies like Bajaj and Magna for developing all of. So they are pretty much using all your products. But when it comes to us, we develop or try to innovate small things, right? As simple as a mobile holder and things like that. For that, Fusion has helped us a lot, to be honest. And for some of the testings and other things that we do with the vehicles that we have in house. So one side of the story is where you have expert folks coming from the old school trying to use the same shortcut or keyboards, to our side of the world where we have to do small products, and that helps us a lot. And of course we work with Tata also, because we use their battery technology. We closely work with Taco to get our batteries. Now going to our side of the world, to be honest, like without digital transformation and technological advancements, our business was not at all viable or not even possible, because it's not a personal vehicle, right? There are folks who are not taking a personal care of like your personal vehicle, right?
Yeah.
So our vehicles are there pretty much on road, and the vehicles needs to talk to us. So it is not just the telemetry, but also the stats that we have to get from the vehicles to make it run properly on the road is where we use technology a lot. That is one side of the world, right? The other side is very price sensitive segment, and you rightly mentioned the true Bharat, what we call, right? Where very low margins, and to make our business sustainable and viable, we have to ensure that we are using technology on every front to reduce the cost and increase the uptime of our vehicles, and that is where technology plays a very significant role for us.
Sure.
And in the form of AI or ML or whatever you want to call, this is what our world has been.
Sure. Dinesh, if I may bring you in, I mean, like how Naveen just mentioned, like, in their case, they're doing some quick innovation using the Fusion platform. So how is technology sort of really changing the way you as a new startup are conceptualizing a product for this market, then attempting to design it and then eventually coming at the right prototype, the final, product for the market?
Sure. No, at Raptee, we've always had this one problem, which has been a blessing in disguise, that we always had much lesser money than we ever always needed, right? So that resulted in us kind of figuring out a lot of problems, right? I mean, a lot of solutions. In our early days, again, I was just discussing, we were one of the beneficiaries of Autodesk US's CSR fund. So we've been using their tools for the last 5 odd years. Similarly, we also couldn't really afford experienced people, right? So today we're about 95 odd engineers out of the 140 member team, and the average age of the company is about 23.
Wow.
Right? That kind of meant we didn't have the problems of the traditional problems that Naveen and Niraj mentioned. So we had it a little easier to kind of transition to it, or rather I'd say that was the only way we knew how to do things. We didn't know what the traditional way of designing things are. That came with its own challenges. Obviously, there were a lot of iterations, like you mentioned. There's getting it right the first time is difficult. But that was the only way we could do it, because at least back then we didn't have the cash to kind of do it the other way. But that the other thing that also kind of happened was obviously COVID. So all of the guys who were working remotely. So without tools like this, and obviously investing in equipment means another thing, right? So obviously first is inexperienced talent, or rather young talent. Second, being remote. Third, most important thing is obviously infrastructure in terms of the servers and the computers that you really require to kind of run these very heavy applications. And when the company can't afford them, then you have this new rule of bring your own device, BYOD, right? And that kind of in cloud native tools kind of helped us kind of use that and move forward. So yeah, I think we definitely kind of leverage that to the maximum. Would have probably been
one of the companies which is kind of used that to the best.
Right. I want your perspective, Dr. Andrew. He mentioned that a lot of folks at the company are quite young. So, I mean, from your perspective, do you believe that is the core area where AI is sort of helping a lot of these companies, who are very young engineers, they're attempting it for the first time? That is where you believe that, from a design standpoint, AI's role become very important for them to explore a lot, innovate better, and
youth helps. Okay, the digital natives operate differently, but look, fundamentally, as a technology provider, we should be 5 to 10 years ahead of where your ecosystems are. If we're not, all right, and we're not telling you to do things that are impossible today, or if we're telling you our old tools can do what you need to do, just try harder, then I can get a new technology provider. Okay. It's our job to be ahead of where the ecosystems are at. The rise of the digital natives matters a lot, and I'll give you hope, okay? Because there's a digital maturity curve here, and the digital maturity curve it goes to the company, supply chain ecosystem, and then government, okay? All right, and usually in that order, by the way. And and why did companies like Tesla, for instance, go with deep vertical integration? Because the ecosystem could not move as fast as they were moving. Now, we all know that vertical integration lasts for a period of dramatic change, and then it all starts to disaggregate again. All right, as the ecosystem now changes and retools. Yeah. So what we're doing, and what is kind of endemic to who we are, is we want to infect the next generation. Infect's a strong word, but it does work with the newest technology. That's why we don't charge educational institutions for any of our software. So, for instance, in the U.S. now, the vast majority of engineering students graduate knowing what Fusion is and how to use it. Yeah. Right. And the adoption of tools in education is dramatic. We're not yet there in India, right? But we will get there. All right, we just signed an MOU with the state of Tamil Nadu, where we're trying to, make sure that new next generation digital tools are just part of everything that gets done. Because this is how you change the ecosystem. Right. You start with the youth, and then you percolate it up into the system. The people who look, I deal with lots of educational institutions. Who are the people that are most resistant to the new tools? It's the professors that have been teaching the class with their own tools. They know all the short. And, they'll use all sorts of logic why they shouldn't be using the new tool, right? But what it comes down to is, I don't want to learn a new tool, right? So you have to work really hard to make it easy for those people. And that is a journey that we're very much willing to help with, and that we're very engaged with, because we know to change the ecosystem, you have to empower the digital natives, and the digital natives have to change the digital laggards. Ooh. And this is how it works. There is hope. I've seen it happen. I've seen it evolve. But you want us to be you want us to say things that sound ridiculous to us to you today, because if we're not, we're a crappy technology provider.
Right. I want to get your perspective, Madhumita, about like what Andrew just mentioned about a lot of digital natives now being a part of the workforce. So your challenges when you look at design, product conceptualization, and how are you trying to sort of circumnavigate through those challenges?
First of all, I think we are in a segment hardware, right? Hardware, and that too in automotive. So the errors are expensive. Timelines, if at all I put in more money also, timeline remains same, right? For Bajaj also, for us also. So I think what for us, coming from my background, I have been in R&D. I built a business, in the R&D space, consulting technology services. So the importance of technology was always there. Right. It was from day one we had that. But as a startup, you have a lot of challenges to face. So when you come to the design part of it, because the first challenge is that first you start as a startup, I think everyone will agree to me, you start with the entire industry not trusting you, because you are a small player and you have to go against that, and you have to prove at every stage, right? I think with that mindset, you start first. When it comes to applying technology, which comes at a cost, which also, kind of is a necessary thing, right, to kind of get that optimization done. And also to achieve what? To achieve a BOM positive component, right? Because everything starts with design, right? How I design a small part component, how it impacts on the production, and how my bill of material drives. Yeah. That is how a company should think, right? That's been our kind of principle. So there, technology like this really helps when you're designing, doing that error checks, when you're kind of testing. I think the objective as a software, adopting to a software is to somewhere bring that business optimization, right? Not just kind of you having a fancy thing in your organization. That's more about if it is aligning to achieve that business objective. My objective was that can I design a product which is bomb positive?
Right.
Like today we are gross margin positive, so can I achieve that? Does that technology impacts helps me in designing that and achieve that? I think that is where a business call, because R&D is good, it's R&D driven, it's a very fancy word. But R&D at the cost of business, I think that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, we've had many engineering marvels, but people are bleeding. People are losing money.
Absolutely. So there has to be objective, and this is where these tech plays a role. Now coming to the second problem, first problem is, of course, you have to design something which makes business sense, period. Nothing beyond that, nothing. You can talk all fancy stuff, on the table, but the real story is, are you bomb positive, right? So these softwares somewhere play that role, right? Taking that call, having that mindset also, can I adapt to that? Now comes the other big elephant in the room is skill. We are in a very new industry. Even I would say the Bajaj or anyone, I'm taking repeatedly this example, but it is true, right? Still, the capability and skill set is still, lacking. One new thing has happened now in the recent times. Initially, if you look at any kind of tech that has come in automotive, specifically two-wheeler, Japanese, right? Collaboration, get the tech, and that is riding till date.
True.
Now the startups who have come, the crazy bunch of people thinking we'll, do disruption. We'll take up every problem. We'll take up these softwares, adapt, So I think skill is something which is a problem which will remain. I think, organization like you should go to tier 2 cities where there is a lot of hunger. Don't go to IIT. I'm also from IIT. No offense to any IITians, right? I'm also from IIT Kharagpur. Please, we have enough on the table. We are, given a lot of facilities. Please go to tier 2 cities where they are hungry, right? And these guys will drive the next, Bharat innovation, I would say. I think that is where skill has been a challenge, definitely. Changing a mindset has been a challenge. If I have someone from, no offense to big, OEMs, to change that mindset. Ki vendor sab karega, no. It's not, I think, what is the mindset? Vendor will do everything. Why not I design it in-house? I think that mindset has to change now. The tech will come from outside. That mindset has to change, and it is changing. You see, on the table we are sitting, all of us who are doing it themselves, right? I think broadly, it's the mindset change which is happening. Very good. Second, it is technology. Software is very important, digitalization and everything, but not at the cost of, business. R&D is very fancy, very nice to hear, but not at the cost of business. I think that is where this mindset of bringing that in the young minds, that has to come from, people like you, where, of course, from industry also, when we are also there, we should be able to, go to those tier 2 level. I will not say IIT and IT also, because we have a lot of facility. A lot is happening, the top tier ones. But when we go to the tier 2 city where they are really these colleges, they are very hungry for all this stuff, and they're ready to take those problems. The first part is I'm ready to take up that problem. And I'm not, I'm starting with the distrust. I know industry is not trusting us. Fine. But you prove at every point. So that gut is there with this young, kind of. I think this, 2-level business skill set is a challenge. Technology is a must.
And all this ties in at a scale that where we are right now. That makes it even more difficult.
Yes.
Right? And that is one question, given I feel that I belong to that legacy mindset, because I also question a lot of startups. And my first question to every startup is return on investment. When are you expected to make money? And, and I've seen, shockingly so, people are getting there. People are getting there much faster than I imagined. And that too at a scale We've not even gone to the scale of ICE. And if we go there, we definitely, I mean, the global market is our, it's a great potential for Indian vehicle makers.
And the other successful startup creates pressure on the larger ecosystem. True. Yes. So, and nothing changes without pressure. Yeah.
It has already started creating. Scarcity makes you think how to innovate.
So I'd like to add to what Madhumita was saying. So Gen AI, everyone keeps talking about, right? So again, same average age group in our company is 25, 26. That particular group or cohort of folks, right? If you see how they are working is they will be looking for solutions and quick solutions, right? What that translates into is everyone wants a shorter learning curve, right? And maybe this is something that like Autodesk should seriously start thinking about, like integrating something into their product where if you're stuck with something, like they can quickly search for it. I'm telling as big problems as like finding a solution of how to host or deploy an Android application on a Play Store with certain type of consents. People are actually literally asking either ChatGPT or some other Gen AI tool to tell, okay, how we can make Play Store approve our product. This was what was happening 2 days back, right? So things like that becomes very, very important because at least the younger generation is looking for quick solutions, right? And they are not like us going and reading some papers or articles and trying to find a solution, right? The other day someone was telling, right, Google will go away if they don't start telling us what to read exactly, right? And that is where Google is also going, right? So this becomes very important for every product. It is not just this product. Every product, a utility product or things like that, people will like to look for solutions. If you have to even put a nut and bolt, probably they will search, okay, how to put a nut and bolt. This is where the Gen is going towards. So,
well, and 10 years ago, we saw this exact same change with YouTube. Okay. Everything moved away from documentation to video. I'm just going to go watch a YouTube video. Yeah. And that has become by far the dominant paradigm for how almost all of our users use our software. You sure they still go to classes? Right. Most people just go watch a YouTube video. Yeah. And now what they're doing is they're using ChatGPT or tools like it to either find that video more precisely or actually get a sentence that tells them exactly what to do. So it's very similar to the learning curve change that we saw with YouTube. It's just accelerating in a different direction.
Every product, like even the Android development tool you see, earlier people used to write comments saying, okay, this is what I'm committing code as. Now it is generating.
Yes.
Literally generating and putting, okay, these are the things that you have done and it is pushing. Right? It has got to that level, right? So again, learning curve, faster development and things like that. So this has to be a focus initiative in each and every company or product.
Right. Okay. Shresh, I'll get your perspective on, as Simple Energy, you've also had some, iteration changes in your products in a very short span of time. So how has technology really enabled you in doing that? And also, what recommendations you might have, you've been using these solutions. So, you might have for Parminder and Dr. Andrew here from your side.
And before you go, while doing that and the noise in the marketplace, because that is the biggest disturbance. While you're trying to innovate, look within, there's so much of cacophony outside, market going this, that, competition doing this. How do you execute it efficiently?
See, first of all, when we're talking about a two-wheeler, we're talking about a product which will be running on road at a specific speed and it can hurt seriously to people, right? And can cause damages to people. So you have to be very sure whatever you're putting it out on the ground is developed, designed and properly tested and validated also, right? Because without that, you cannot put out a hardware which is capable of hurting people. So, of course, there is a lot of noise, customers behind us because people have seen the product. As a consumer, even if I see a product, I would want that in my house the very, very next day. Correct. So, development takes time. And with the technology coming in, of course, with Tata, Nikhil sir being there, and he has seen that particular period that previously, if you have to develop from one generation to another generation, you have to do multiple prototypings, test, physically test. But now with softwares coming in, you can do simulations, you can do design tests, you can do multiple tests on the software itself. So that helps you shorten that period of development. But of course, there is definitely a need of physical tests, but that reduces drastically because you've done the multiple tests on the simulations and multiple conditions you have tested on the software itself. So you have to be very sure, as I said, that the software is a facilitator, and we are still in the very nascent stage of the electric vehicle industry or the automotive industry moving towards digitalization. So there is a lot of things that would be coming in the future that will shorten the product lifecycle development timeline even shorter. So that is what our thing has been. But of course, there has been a lot of noise, competitions doing everything. But whatever we want to do, we want to be focused on what we want to deliver to the customers without compromising on the quality of the product and the value proposition that we have promised to the customer.
Yeah. Running short on time, so just one final word from each one of you. I'll start with you, Naveen. As you look at the future, what will accelerate the adoption in your assessment?
I think adoption of EV will be again folks urbanization, folks moving to the cities, the cost of fuels, fossil fuels, what we call it, because again India from the government side it will be pushing a lot because we literally import 80% of the fossil fuels for our own consumption, and that is why there will be big push from the government for the EV adoption that will definitely save some of their dollars that they are spending outside. So I think that will be the biggest driver to make it successful. Government providing more support and incentives for the charging system, development of the charging system ecosystem is the key player. Otherwise, like whatever innovations we are doing, like will help to put the vehicle on ground. But if you don't remove the anxiety from the user that what if I run out of charge, it's going to be no day. It won't be successful.
And the right business at the end of the day.
Yeah, business cases will always be there. Need will always be there. But end of the day, it is the people who have to use it, right? And if you don't remove this anxiety from the users, what will, right, happen, right?
So Deshmukh, what do you think in your assessment, what we need to overcome to, accelerate on this path?
So I can say there are two battery technologies that we have to evaluate for, especially I'm talking the construction equipment, but I can see there's a solution available for the compact machines still up to the 5 ton as I mentioned before. But in construction industry, I can say the technology adoptions, especially digital transformations, because earlier we used to design our product in 3 years time, 5 years times. Now we have to launch the product in 1 year's time or 2 steps. The software is what we are seeing, because earlier we used to have a lot of draftsman and drawing the parts. But there's no solution there. There's no option to adopt the technology to develop the product cycles. So starting from the drawing boards till the validations, we have a lot of pressure to bring the product into market, but much more reliable product. And that is only possible to the virtual simulation and virtual validations, because in terms of two-wheeler industry or four-wheeler industry, we can still drive the car on the roads, but in our industry, we have to literally dig the soil, and that's not the infinite soils available to dig the times. So we have a lot of pressure to use the virtual simulations, validation cycles, to start it from drawing till the fuel consumption trials that we do on virtual. So fast adoption of this technology to bring the product in the market, I think that's how we end.
Mr. Deshpande, one big problem that keeps you awake, that needs to be addressed so that this adoption...
So I think I was just mentioning to him, customer awareness in India, in Indian specific condition. Something because all of us are working on charging infra, bringing the acquisition cost low, improving the technology, etc. But still, and I'm sure all of you have experience, when a person goes into a two-wheeler showroom, he has decided that he wants to buy an EV, right, or a two-wheeler EV, and then he walks in. Today we are not in that situation.
Passenger vehicle.
So in a four-wheeler condition, he has 10 options, and he has still, and last moment he changes his mind possibly that no, I can still stay with ICE.
Right.
So as an OEM, there's a lot we need to do on the awareness of EVs, how they work. You can't tell a customer how to drive a car, but you have to make him aware what
awareness is something that needs to build further.
And comfort, right?
Yeah. I mean, just word of mouth in the market I don't think is sufficient.
Yeah. Niraj, one thing that will kind of trigger an acceleration, you feel?
So from our perspective, we see that the adoption will take its own time also, right? We can try to accelerate it, but the other way that we try to address it by, building very compelling products, right? Now, there, I think Autodesk and companies will helping us with this effort can help us by helping create more products that can be rapidly, iterated upon, right? So let's just say we've launched one vehicle, right? We need to be able to launch 4 or 5 different more products, right? And build out an entire portfolio. Now, we're doing a lot of repetitive things, right? And that repetitive stuff can be avoided. Yes, right. And especially when, of course, there are ways to automate that and things like that. But the point is, can we use some of the newer technologies, including, generative models, things like that? Not just from a design perspective, but also from an automation perspective, right? Generate drawings for all of my 500 parts, right? Help me refine this one part and all the consequential changes that happen across the vehicle, right? Usually this takes hundreds of man hours, right? And so these things, by, making them much more rapid, we can possibly have more innovations and, more exciting things for consumers, and that helps drive change faster.
Do you think life cycle, Andrew, according to you, is the biggest challenge we feel at this point in time? Going as basic as Instagram Reels to YouTube Shorts. That's our mind space right now. And, and like how Niraj mentioned that having solutions that can address their problems in a short span of time.
Yeah, look, you see, the importance of the life cycle is that everything's becoming more rapidly connected, right? Everything's converging, all right? The decisions you make in the design world are converging with the decisions that get made in the manufacturing world. This is happening everywhere. There's just a shorter distance between these decisions. So the life cycle and the need to stitch the life cycle together is critical. But I love what you said about automating the boring things. So we do use AI to automate the drawing stack now, right? And these things aren't very, exciting, but they have huge impacts on your ability to get to the harder problems. So we're going to continue to use this connected flow of data to train models that actually do that stuff and reduce the time it takes to create a model or execute the drawings from weeks to days or days to hours. And I think that's really critical. But let's just face it, everything's converging. Yeah. The time between these decisions is converging. The data flow is converging. And you just have to accept that that's the world we live in. That cycle times are getting faster.
Yeah. Like Parminder, he mentioned about you need to think 5 to 10 years ahead. In Indian context, when you look at the problem areas 5 to 10 years from now and you heard them, what is it that you're trying to solve? So, one or two key things that you think is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, I think, for us, it's very important that we enable the ecosystem or the new startups which are coming up with this technology where they can adapt and scale very comfortably. You see, the bigger challenge is when I said agility and capability to innovate, and the software is capable, but at the same time, it should not have a large implication on the cost side. So you need to trust. So we need to build a trust that on cloud, the solutions can provide that capability and they can solve the problem. So I think as we move forward, and we are seeing the change as we move forward, more and more organizations, maybe startup and as well as large, will move towards cloud to do even a complicated or the larger part of the piece. Like Fusion is today completely a cloud-based platform. Right. All aspects of the product life cycle can be managed that. And I see that next 4 to 5, our focus is in that direction, and we're working with our customers, and I see more and more coming on that in that area. So I think with that we will impact a lot on the way the cost implication and the agility which startup needs to have will be certainly provided there.
So Madhumita, do you think that it is just adopting a platform like Fusion, or you kind of go hand in hand with them, and as to how evolve that or any other platform to help you address everyday issues? What according to you will accelerate, you think, from your operations perspective? Consumer psyche, of course, that will take its own...
The product.
That'll take its own sweet time. But how do you see from your operational challenges perspective as to how can it be addressed in your assessment?
So I think Definitely, any tech, it enables. The first functionality, it should enable you to achieve something in lesser time, right? And also, one challenge which I see any of the software, like, SolidWorks or whatever we kind of use or something. One is getting the person trained in that, adapting to that. That process has to be very seamless, right? Because that itself takes so much time or complexity. Then there is a user, kind of a resistance is there, and then for the organization it becomes a challenge. I think that is a very important aspect. Of course, the software has to do all the function. That is the given because you're taking it for that. But when you are adapting or integrating in a system, it should be seamless. It should be seamless to get into the system, because changing that kind of user, making that user on it, that has to be seamless. I think that is something, as a CEO, I feel that sometimes becomes a challenge as an organization, whether it's your design softwares or whether it's even your CRM, right?
So make it as easy as you can.
Exactly.
So that adoption is faster.
Adoption is faster.
Simpler, easier. I mean, Dinesh, you worked with what? You said average age 23, 24. What is it that your engineers are really looking for? And I mean, what are their pain areas that can be addressed, you feel?
No, interesting. So, again, the problem with that age group is that nothing is ever really enough, right? They wanna, they want to kind of keep, and it's a good thing, right? They want to keep learning something new, and that means that I have to every 6 months give them a new challenge. If I don't give them a new challenge, then they're like, okay, I'm stagnating. This is not good for me. I want to move out, right? So, I think, and I think this is kind of coming into what I believe is required for the industry as well. Is pace of innovation. And I think that's where tools like Autodesk and anybody else is kind of helping. But pace of innovation, I believe, is the most important thing that we, I think, is the most important thing at hand. Today, I drove from Chennai to Bangalore in an electric car. Wasn't the most seamless of experiences, but it's possible today. But this is not an experience that I'd like to give the average customer and say, okay, this is what EVs are, right? Right. Before even they get to understand that these are the challenges that are in EV, how do we give them a product that's the next step? Seamless. Obviously, there's like she said, needs to be seamless, but you cannot get from 0 to 10 immediately, but there use these steps to kind of keep improving. But at the same time, there's also something a little contradicting there is standardization, right? The other problem that we're seeing is there's no awareness about what chargers are, how you use chargers, and if there's no awareness on, petrol and diesel in IC vehicles, but you don't know, nobody knows what CCS is, nobody knows what standards exist out there. So I think there's a balance we maintain in terms of how fast we innovate, but also how fast we kind of standardize on the things that we need to.
Right. Lovely. I think it was fantastic hearing you guys. A lot of education for us, and I hope the conversation was as engaging and as fruitful and meaningful to all of you. And we'd like to bring out your point of views out to the audience and build the awareness, which is one of the big challenges that we face in the e-mobility space. And thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.